Kenny Rogers. We're live.
Kenny Roberts.
Roberts. I'm so sorry.
No worries, man. I get that all the time.
Yeah, gotta know when to hold it, right? That I think I wrote on my calendar Kenny Rogers. That's what I got. But from Rural Action, and specifically even inside of Rural Action, True Pigment is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm the operations manager for True Pigments, which is a social enterprise of Rural Action. So I work primarily with the social enterprise team, of course, on the True Pigments project.
Yeah.
True Pigments is based out of Truetown, Ohio. So it's probably it's between Gloucester and Athens area for those who maybe aren't familiar, because it is just tiny little town. Yeah, Millfield.
Yeah.
And it's a great spot. The discharge there has been there since the 60s is about what we believe. Popped up, and yeah. So I work on a team that our job is to take the water out of there. We process it, and then we turn it into pigments for uses in paints, concrete, anything that could use a pigment. They probably use iron oxide pigments.
Yeah.
So.
And so that, like, what is it a pollutant from the coal mines, or like what is it? Is it specifically that, the coal mine waste?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's called acid mine drainage. There's about 11,000 stream miles of it in the United States.
Wow.
And that is old, outdated data. That came from, I think it was a 2016 survey. So there's more now, unfortunately. But it is a big pollutant. And every discharge site is unique. So the Truetown site in particular impacts 7 miles of Sunday Creek that empties into the Hocking River. It discharges at about 1,000 gallons a minute. So it is a little weird if you're ever on site. You kind of just walk out, and there's just this kind of minor creek running from the middle of nowhere, and there's no water beyond that. It's just all coming out of the mines underneath. So it's about a 22-mile mine complex that sits beneath this hole in the ground. And as the water and oxygen underground kind of combine, here in the state of Ohio, a lot of our coal mining, as they get towards the edge of the coal, you'll find pyrite, or fool's gold is the more common term for it. And that pyrite, the sulfur in it, reacts with the water and the oxygen, and it releases a lot of different chemical compounds, and one of them is iron in solution. And so that's why if you're ever driving, what is that? I think it's Route 13 there. All of a sudden, it's like the water's bright orange.
Yeah.
A lot of people in the area have seen, the bright orange.
Yeah.
But that's all iron from that discharge. There's a ton of tiny discharges throughout the state of Ohio, even in this region. I think on that same route, on State Route 13 or whatever that is, you'll probably see just between Gloucester and Athens, there's one off to the side of the road along the way that, it's self-contained, so ODNR is less concerned about that. This one pollutes a major stream. And, of course, the major issue with having iron in your water is it's not supposed to be there, and so it is, like you said, a pollutant. Yeah. It acts as a 7-mile chemical dam for fish, bugs, anything that wants to go downstream into the Hocking River effectively can't for the most part. It will kill it, whether from iron building up on their gills or the acidity of the water itself. So it's a big issue throughout.
Oh, wow.
So
how did Rural Action was this like how was this just an idea someday that someone was like, hey, let's try to clean up these, like, how does something like this come about? Yeah.
So this is kind of a crazy story. We work closely with a wide variety of partners, and one of them is the Ohio University. And Dr. Guy Riefler, who's a professor of civil engineering at the university, was moving down here when he was starting his job and was looking for a project to work on. He's like, I just want something cool. And he got taken out to one of these sites, and he's like, man, I wonder if you can do something with this. And so he started doing some testing, and he's found out about iron oxide pigments. It's also used in welding occasionally and stuff like that. It's basically just rust. And he was like, there's uses for this, maybe I can make something. So he started working on it, and he came up with his first batch, and he's described it to me multiple times. Like, it was hideous. It was awful in every way. He's like, so their kids went to school or something together. He got connected with Professor John Sabraw at Ohio University. And John Sabraw is a professor of art and specifically like painting and that type of stuff. So he they got connected, and John was like, I'm all about this. You're turning pollution into a usable product. I have knowledge on the paint side of things. Like, let's sit down and figure this out. Wow. So the two of them really sat down and started hashing it out, came up with like the whole concept and everything. And at the same time, Rural Action has been around for about 30 years. And one of their primary kind of divisions is watershed restoration. And one of their main things is dealing with acid mine drainage. So they run, with ODNR, they help run several treatment facilities that work in different ways, and there's pros and cons of the different types that you have. So they approached us and were like, hey, this might fit really well with what you guys do if you could turn it into a business and use the profits from it to help pay for restoration work instead of being solely dependent on grants all the time.
Which is, I think, the difference between when you hear like an NGO or a social enterprise. Like, I didn't understand the social enterprise thing until Heather from the Community Makerspace was on.
Yeah.
And the difference is between so Rural Action is a nonprofit, right? That is funded by grants, but then a social enterprise, like, you are allowed to be for profit to then repurpose. Like, that is a good thing.
Yeah. It's honestly a great thing, especially in a time of a lot of fiscal uncertainty, with a lot of stuff that's going on. It is great when you have social enterprises that can step up and help cover some of those bills. Bills are still due for nonprofits no matter what. Yeah. Payroll must be made. And the ability to have organizations that are working alongside you and donating their profits to you is tremendous, and can really help alleviate. And it's not just Rural Action's not the only person doing that, right? Yeah. There's organizations all throughout the United States that are doing it, and it has produced very good work so far throughout the U.S.
That's exciting. So you said Rural Action's been around for like 30 years. When was this civil engineer and art? Like, when was this? How long ago? Was it like 3 years ago or 10 years ago? Like,
I'm sure they're gonna pick on me if I get this
wrong. Okay. That's okay.
But I want to say it was like 2012, 2011.
So good bit. Okay.
Well, yeah. So this has been a project on the books for a long time. Yeah. And it wasn't until about the federal government has a set aside as a part of a law called SMACRA, which is why we don't see a whole lot of new mines producing acid mine drainage that pollutes our waterways, in theory, is the Surface Mining Reclamation Act of 1977 means that any form of mining, they now have to try to restore the mine to where it was previously. Right. And so the whole goal is like, if you dig a hole in the ground, you need to prevent that from producing AMD and polluting waterways and killing fish and destroying property values downstream and stuff like that. Great idea.
Reasonable request.
Yeah, it's very reasonable. But as a part of that, when a new mine of any sort opens up, they have to set aside money that the federal government then takes part of that money and lets the company use it to rebuild their site. And the other part of that money goes to treating abandoned mineland sites.
That's smart. Yeah.
That's called AMLR funds. So you'll hear that all the time in our industry, whether it's with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources or the Office of Surface Mining and Reclamation Enforcement with or Bureau of Interior. You hear that term all the time. And so we were approached basically by ODNR, and they're like, hey, we have interest in this project too, because this has been on our books for a long time to try to figure out how to treat, and there's no reasonable way to do this that's economical. Yeah. So how can we do this and hopefully offset the cost of treatment in the long term? Yeah. And we were like, well, we kind of met some people who have an idea. So let's all get together. Yeah. And so we received AMLR funding to do engineering designing and stuff like that. So pretty soon, there will be a full-blown water treatment site at the True Town property that Rural Action owns, and we will treat about 2 million pounds of iron will be pulled out of that water every year.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. And what's even crazier is that water will be like that in perpetuity. So as long as humans have decided that it is worthwhile to treat, it will always be producing AMD.
Yeah. Acid-minded
drainage. Yeah, sorry.
No, yeah.
But yeah, so, we have mines dating back to like the Roman Empire that are still producing acid mine drainage.
That's wild.
And we have estimates from a few different places that they're like, yeah, we think that the True Town site will still be producing for the next 600 years or whatever.
So that just doesn't even seem feasible. So then, the man, yeah. Well, who's paying for all that?
Yeah. So that's the goal of the social enterprise, right? Is, hey, this is incredibly expensive to treat over 600, 800 years plus.
Yeah.
What if we can demonstrate to the industry a new model of business that allows us to pay completely? So when we treat, this is, these treatment plants aren't a new thing. They're throughout the United States. We actually, the Office of Surface Mining, OSM, they help run several of these throughout the country, and they are actually advising on ours to help us with some of the technical stuff and whatnot.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, because I'm not an engineer. But, they do all this work with us, and they point to the fact that it's very expensive in the long run, because every year it's like, okay, I got to buy a whole bunch of lime. I got to buy a whole bunch of this sodium. I got a whole, there's just always more chemical add-ins for as long as you want, plus the maintenance costs, plus the personnel costs. And so I think everyone is very interested in the like, hey, this is a business model and it can be replicated in other spots. What they're doing doesn't require incredibly fancy equipment. Like, it's the same kind of system that we have now, just set up a little bit differently. And using that, they're going to be able to pay completely is the goal. So pay for everything, staff salaries, the chemical inputs. The goal is to basically reduce the burden on the taxpayer.
Because some funds from that is propping up some of this. Right?
Oh yeah. So like OSM, when they run these plants out in Pennsylvania or whatever, those are 100% funded by AMLR funds.
Yeah. Okay.
So if the federal government...
Oh, wait, and then to bring that back, the AMLR funds are current mines that are putting money aside for things like this. Yeah. Okay.
So it opens up this whole can of worms of one day if the federal government's like, hey, we can't afford to be paying these AMLR funds every year.
Put that back in the general?
Yeah, it's like, you want to have a way to self-sustain the program because the work is important. Acid mine drainage has a large impact on wildlife, tourism, property values, which affects education. Like, it just keeps going.
And like Millfield specifically, like the actual site where it's at, like Millfield's forgotten about. It's a small little town that, like, unless you're from there, like not a lot of people.
It's a tiny town. It's a great town. Yeah. The neighbors and everything that we work with them quite frequently, obviously, because sometimes we're like walking through their backyard or whatever, and they're all very nice to us and wonderful people. And if any of you are listening, thank you. But it's crazy to me that, like, it's not even just Millfield that's impacted. I mean, Sunday Creek runs all the way to the Hawking. There's hundreds of homes that run alongside of it, and there's research out of Pennsylvania that indicates that they think property values can dip as much as 40% in some circumstances because of acid mine drainage. Now, that's one study done one time. It's hard to do those types of studies because you're getting into an area of environmental economics that gets like touchy, and it's like, how do you
open to interpretation? You're saying?
I think in all science there's always kind of this like vaguity of like, where do we go with this? What does this data really mean? But I think we've seen that study, and everyone on our team's a pretty firm believer that it definitely, I think anyone would agree, no one wants to have orange water in their backyard. No one wants their kid to hop in the stream and come out bright orange. So.
Yeah. Wow. So how many people are working in this, like, just in the True Pigment thing? Like, you and who else?
So on the True Pigments project, at this point is me and Michelle Shively McIver, who's typically kind of the very public face. She's been with the project longer than I have,
Cool.
and she's very much the environmental side of everything. She's been the Sunday Creek watershed coordinator for a long time. And then I stepped in recently to help more with the business side of things and, help in the areas that you need help with. As all businesses do, you hire somebody to fit skill sets and whatnot. We have partners at the Ohio Department of Natural Resources that we work quite closely with. Ohio University, we have both professors, we have grad students who do research on our property, we have grad students who take part of research done for the plant.
Mm-hmm.
We have the Office of Surface Mining, Reclamation, and Enforcement. They participate. We have an engineering firm brought in on this that helps with all the engineering stuff.
It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. And it's one of those things you're like, oh, it's a 2-person team. Like, it's not that big. It's like, no, it's a big team once you start including partners. And when I say partners, I mean, we talk all the time. It's constant communication about this project because of the investment into it, the personal investment that people want to see that water cleaned up.
Yeah. So then what is the execution look like? Right, so you just talked about all these different organizations that are involved. Like, executionally, how are you getting this shit out of the water in Milford? Like, and then from that water, like, into some paint cans? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so when we have the plant, we're still in that engineering design phase, but when we have the plant, it's really kind of cool. There's a lot of chemistry that goes into it that I'm not a chemistry guy, but I'll do my best to explain it. Basically, the goal is that the reason why when you look at the bottom of a creek and there's that orange sludge on the bottom, that's from AMD, the iron, as it gets oxygen into it, drops out. It basically drops out of solution and falls down. And that's just like a normal thing in chemistry. So what happens if you add something like hydrogen peroxide to it? You are adding oxygen to it, and it helps settle it faster. So you drop it out, we put it into water clarifiers, we dose it with a small, tiny amount of polymer to help kind of combine with it, add some weight so that it'll settle to the bottom. We can then pump out all the sludge on the bottom, the AMD portion of it. We pump that all out. The water that has now been treated gets treated one more time to help deal with some of the acidity of the water. We add some base stuff to it to make
it back down.
Bring it back down to a normal range. And then after that flows out into the what will be a wetland that will hopefully be like a community area for the community to come and take walks and bird watching and stuff like that. Nice, yeah. So it'll all flow out through there back into Sunday Creek. That'll be clean water. Now, that's not clean water as in you can drink it. I do need to clarify that. Yeah. But it is clean water in the sense that it is as clean as creek water is. And that's a win because that's what we're trying to put back.
Comparatively.
Yeah. And so then after that phase, you pull the sludge off, and the sludge will go through a dewatering step where we basically press on it really hard until as much water as possible comes out of it. And then we dry it. We grind it, and then we have pigment. Now, different iron oxide pigments are so cool. When you heat them up in a kiln at different temperatures, they'll turn to different colors. So if anyone goes to our website, you'll see there's a couple photos someplace where it's like a gradient of colors. And people all the time are like, well, you guys can just make orange. Where did that come from? I was like, no, that's the same pigment heated up to different temperatures.
Yeah, wow.
So it gives us a lot of flexibility. We currently do some hand harvesting, and we sell to Gamblin Paints. They make oil paints for like artists and whatnot. Okay. And we sell them 3 different colors as part of that. So we heat them up. We will heat them up in kilns to get the different colors that we want to match with like what clients want when it comes time to sell. But yeah, then after that, we ship it off as a dry powder, and they're the ones who make the paint. So
I see.
we
Okay,
are
yeah,
a
yeah.
pigment company
Gotcha.
that currently partners with a paint company. So a lot of people know us as the paint company.
Yeah.
But
Well, because like just like what was the Upcycle Fest? Like there was a table, and then
Yep.
it had like kind of a the little packet of the
Yep.
paints, and that was super sick. Okay, obviously the getting the sludge out of the creek happens there. Like where are you taking this back to like press it and like where are you getting like the?
That's all done on site. Yeah.
Oh.
So Rural Action, we own, I think it's 55 acres over there that we bought. And we will put the plant on the property, both the water treatment portion of it and the pigment production portion of it. So all be on one property. And that way we don't have to have it, spread out and be driving all over the place and wasting gas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I keep getting confused because like it seems like you're able to do stuff now, but you're still trying to build like a bigger one. Like I was like, wait, are you selling stuff right now or not? Like,
Yeah.
It just seems like you are, but there's also just like maybe streamlining the process. Is that like the point of the?
Yeah, this is a really common question for us, and the answer is yes. We do sell pigment now.
Yeah.
We do hand harvesting though. So when I say hand harvesting, we jump into the creek in waders and we are pulling out in buckets the iron on the bottom and then we hand process it. It's very laborious. We are not treating the water. That's why the water's still orange.
Mm-hmm. Can people come volunteer and do that? Like, do you do that like in projects, like on a Saturday? Or like, what does that look like?
Yeah, we do it a couple times a year. We'll hopefully be having another one here pretty soon.
Cool. If
people are interested in volunteering, you're welcome to sign up. There's usually limited spots. The best way to get signed up is to go to the ruralaction.org, and I think it's /volunteer.
Cool.
And you can just sign up for the mailing list. They handle all the volunteering stuff for us because it's a lot. But yeah, you can participate in those types of things.
Cool.
And it's a lot of fun. It's hard work. Yeah. It's very hot because if you're in waders and like you will get pigment. I had a pair of clothes on. We were doing a harvest like a month ago. I came out partially bright orange and I was like, you know what? It's okay. But there's people who think through it and they're like, oh, I'm going to go to the thrift store. I'm going to buy a white shirt. And that way, my shirt will be like tie-dyed.
Yeah,
when I was like, man,
cool.
I should have done that.
That is cool. Well, honestly, even like sell those like that. That's another interesting thing too. Cool. That's cool. So then, when you say you're coming in on the business side, then like you're kind of, like you already have like the relationships with a couple people you're selling that too. But I mean, that's what you're talking about when you're saying you're on the business side. Like you are trying to operationalize the streamline of this, and then like it's like once you have that set up and can produce that, then you have because it's like you can't really go sell stuff you can't produce yet, right? So obviously you have significantly less of a product to sell hand harvesting every couple months than if you've got like a facility out there. So how many people would it take to run this facility that you're talking about?
So the water treatment side it's hard because we're still finalizing some details. Yeah. But the water treatment side can be handled with, 2 people.
Cool.
But the goal is to be able to hire more than that.
Yeah.
The pigment processing side will be the side that's a little more labor intensive because you need, a business side person to help not just handle buying the chemicals and doing all that. You also, and the water treatment side, you have like a wastewater treatment operator. So that's the second person. Then on the pigment side, you have more the manufacturing process of, okay, now we have to dry this. How many people do you need to dry it?
Yeah.
How many people do you need to,
put it in the kiln?
Yeah. And so that's where it's like, we don't have all the answers yet on that side of things. We're slowly figuring it out piece by piece, which is whenever you get a piece, it feels great. But, the goal is to be able to hire or have a total of 3 to 4 people on the project, which, it's not a lot, but it's jobs that weren't there before, and we're all about that.
Jobs that weren't there are also not doing the job that they're doing.
Yeah,
it's important.
So, yeah.
That's exciting. So, what are your challenges right now? Like, the obvious answer is money, right? Like, if I gave you $10 million today, like, you could do something with it. Mm-hmm. But what are your other challenges, like, just in this endeavor?
I think It's one of those things where there's a lot of engineering challenges, chemistry, design-focused stuff, and they're very cool and unique challenges. And as a person who's not an engineer by trade,
Yeah.
getting to work with engineers and being able to talk with them and be like, hey, here's what I need, here's what makes the most engineering sense. They don't align. How can we make a system that aligns the two of them? That's always an interesting conversation. Thankfully, we work with great partners who help facilitate that conversation. And, like you said, money. I don't think any small business is ever going to be like, I don't need money.
Can people just donate straight to True Pigments, or do they just donate to Rural Action? Like, how does the community support what you're doing?
Yeah,
financially.
If the community wants to, help support us, we're all about that.
Yeah.
Of course, you can support us just through the volunteering aspect of it.
Yeah.
You can support us through, if you go to the truepigments.com website, we sell those Gamblin paint sets, and the ones that we sell on our website, those funds come back to us.
Perfect. And that's what the little pack of paint that I was looking at the upcycle. Yeah, okay. Cool.
And then you can also donate to Rural Action. Rural Action is a huge part of this endeavor, and so you can donate to Rural Action, both their general fund or to specifically True Pigments. You can itemize that, but yeah.
Nice. How did you get involved with Rural Action? Like, what? Are you from around the area, or like?
I actually am a transplant, so I grew up in Akron.
Cool.
I went to the University of Akron, rivals of OU. Not rivals, but same division. And so I went to Akron University for a degree in marketing, and I worked up there as a nonprofit mental health agency doing like administrative side marketing and grant work and whatnot. And then I moved down here because my wife is going to med school.
Nice.
And so we started living down here, and I was working for a foundation in the area, having a great time doing that. And I've always said I would love to do environmental restoration work, which like with a business degree is a little tricky.
Yeah.
And I remember telling that to people when I was in college, and they were like, why do you want to work on the nonprofit side of things? Because it's cool. That's the answer. And B, because I really like helping build communities, and I really like environmental stuff. And so I always wanted it. I saw this job opportunity, and I was like, we got to go for it. Yeah. And it's been a lot of fun. Great project to work on.
That's awesome. How have you enjoyed Athens? How long have you been here now?
I've been here a year.
Oh, wow.
So I'm a new transplant. My wife and I are very happy down here. We both love Athens. Cool. It's a great community. Yeah. And like I think even this podcast and the general interest in True Pigments is proof of that. You know, I go out the flea market, whatever it is. And I say, I work for the True Pigments Project. Everybody instantly, how's that going? You guys are the ones treating the orange water, aren't you?
Yeah.
And I think the fact that the community is so invested in making the community a better place is what makes Athens. It's what makes Athens Athens.
Yeah.
It's what makes the community side of a college town thrive. And I think Southeast Ohio is a better place as a whole because of their love and investment in their neighbors. Regardless of who they are, what's different about you, we're all just invested in making each other better. I think that's great. Yeah,
I think for you to pick that up in a year here is pretty fucking wonderful. Again, testament to the place.
Absolutely. Athens is great.
Yeah. That's really beautiful, man.
Yeah.
So the community, they can support you by volunteering. They can go truepigments.com, buy some paints. They could specifically donate to True Pigments. They could learn more about Rural Action.
Mm-hmm. The other things people can do to help us, as cheesy as it sounds, is learning more about the project and the environment that you're in and the environment that other people are in. So I of course have to be if you want to go and like or follow our social media accounts, taking the time to learn more, and also when we have major updates, we will be in a position to have some pretty major updates hopefully in a little while, and we want you to hear about those as they're coming out. of course. And there may be a time where we need help with, advocacy work, or, hey, we need a lot of volunteers for XYZ, or we're going to have an event. We want you to come out. So our social media is the best place to hear about all of that.
Yeah.
It's the first place you'll hear about it. So
Wicked. Yeah. With that up, well, recurring invite, dude. Like, if you have something to come promote, especially time sensitive, like you're trying to recruit some volunteers, or even just to talk about how an event went, like, for sure, want to open this door, or like the other lady that you said works with you on the project, like it'd be cool, like, kind of, yeah, man, like, just the more the merrier, the more information
Absolutely.
and stories that we get out there. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else is up. I don't want to rush you out of here. I don't have anywhere to be.
I mean, True Pigments is in a position right now where we're doing well, and it's a lot of behind the scenes work. And so I would just tell people, be patient.
Yeah.
There's updates coming. There will be big news coming in the future, and we're super excited to share it with you guys when we can. All things in due time. But thank you to the community for believing in the project. And yeah.
Awesome. Kenny Roberts.
Yep.
From True Pigments. Awesome. This was beautiful. I appreciate your time. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate your passion. Like, just seeing the raw emotion on your face, like when you're talking through this, like, that excites me. I'm glad that there's somebody like you out here doing this for our community. Like,
thank you.
That's
very
really
kind
awesome.
things to say.
Yeah, awesome. Appreciate your time. Thanks so much. And again, welcome back anytime, man.
Thank you.
Cool.